prosperous 2026.
Channel Africa, the African perspective.
Conversations are happening, and Channel Africa is at the heart of them. We tell the African story with clarity, pride, and purpose, reaching audiences that matter to your brand. Partner with us and connect your business with listeners across borders in multiple languages and markets. For partnership opportunities, sponsorship, or sales, email us at partnership@channelafrica.co.za. Channel Africa, the African perspective. This is Africa Update, your pulse to the continent. Stories shaping nations and voices driving change. Stay informed, stay connected, right here on Channel Africa, the African perspective.
Well, a very good afternoon. It is 12 o'clock. Thank you so much to Benjamin and Palisa on the move for giving us that music. And of course, we have a packed show for you on the Africa Update. Good afternoon and welcome to it. This is Channel Africa, the African perspective, where we meet to look at the latest in news, current affairs and sports. I'm Unathi Batyashe, standing in for Lulu Gabu. All right, so let's give you then a sense of what's coming up on the show in this hour. 8 Kenyan Defence Force soldiers have been charged with trafficking narcotics, and Nigeria's national football team, the Super Eagles, are threatening to boycott their upcoming Africa Cup of Nations quarter-final match against Algeria. This is a big one, of course. So those are just some of the news that we have for you today. We'll have also those engagements with our correspondent as well as our experts that we have invited for this afternoon. We are broadcasting live for you from Auckland Park in Johannesburg, that's in South Africa. We're also on the DSTV audio bouquet, channel 802, on OpenView on channel 628, and you can live stream us on www.channelafrica.co.za, as well as on SABC Plus app, available on the Google and App Play stores. You can also download the Channel Africa app on the Google and Apple Play stores. Importantly, you can also download Channel Africa's own app on the Google and Apple Play stores. Join in the conversation. You can also find us on X at Channel Africa 1, Facebook at Channel Africa, Instagram at Channel Africa 1. You can also subscribe on YouTube at Channel Africa 1. Remember, of course, to use the hashtag Africa Update. We're going to check in with the news just now. Onele and the team are standing by. It's over to you and the news desk. Onele.
SABC News, the African perspective.
Thank you, Unathi, and greetings to our listeners. The death toll from a boat carrying migrants that capsized off Gambia's coast on New Year's Eve has now risen to 39. The boat was bound for Europe. Gambia's Defence Ministry last week put the death toll at 7 and said that more than 200 people could have been on board. A total of 112 people had been rescued as of Wednesday. The migration route used by West Africans trying to reach Spain via the Canary Islands is one of the world's deadiest. The South African Qualifications Authority is warning matriculants to be cautious of unregistered institutions offering fake study opportunities. SACA says students should verify institutions before paying fees. The warning comes as the Basic Education Department prepares to officially announce the 2025 matric results on Tuesday. SACA's Chief Operating Officer, Dr. Makapa Makafula.
The numbers of those who wrote matriculant vis-a-vis the space available in higher education institutions, it doesn't match. And as a result, you'll have all these, people just waiting to pounce on vulnerable students. And the most common red flags, you have people promising jobs after graduation. That's not true. Most of them, issues around, their website tend to advertise that they're offering 2 degrees. And some of them, especially the online scams that we tend to have, there's lack of physical address. And people need to really double check whether these institutions do have a physical address. We need to double check with the department whether it exists.
Zambia has ditched plans to extend its International Monetary Fund loan program before the scheduled expiration of the end of this month. An IMF spokesperson said authorities initially requested a one-year extension of the extended credit facility arrangement, but have since informed the IMF team that they will not pursue this option. The program was agreed in 2022 to assist Zambia restore debt sustainability after its 2020 default. And lastly, President Donald Trump says that Venezuela has agreed to use the proceeds from the sale of its oil to buy only American-made goods. The U.S. Department of Energy says that it has begun marketing Venezuelan oil on global markets. It also says all proceeds from the sales will first settle in U.S.-controlled accounts at globally recognized banks, the BBC's Will Grant explains.
Venezuela is going to be purchasing only American-made products with the money they receive from our new oil deal, he wrote on his Truth Social site, adding they would include agricultural goods, medicines and equipment for the country's dilapidated electrical grid. He called the step a wise choice, although the interim government in Venezuela is yet to confirm the information. However, the state-run energy firm PDVSA did confirm negotiations were underway with the Americans, while acting president Delcy Rodriguez said Venezuela was open to arrangements where all parties benefit.
Channel Africa News, I'm Onele Nsinsi.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
And coming up in your sports news this hour, CAF releases fixtures for the CAF Champions League as well as the CAF Confederation Cup match day 3 and 5, while Arina Sabalenka to skip key events in 2026 to prioritize her mental health. I'll tell you more at 12:30.
Africa Update on Channel Africa.
All right, thanks so much to my colleagues. You are watching Africa Update. Let's give you a sense then of our question of the day on today's hashtag Africa Update asks, Nigeria's national football team, the Super Eagles, are threatening to boycott their upcoming Africa Cup of Nations quarterfinal. That's the match against Algeria if they do not receive all outstanding winning bonuses. What do you make of this action or threat thereof? That's the question we're asking you today. Of course, that all-important, all-stakes game happening on Saturday, the 10th of January. We'll share your thoughts on Channel Africa's social media platforms at Channel Africa 1 on X and on Instagram. You can also reach us on at Channel Africa on Facebook, or you can send us your comments and voice notes to our WhatsApp number +27 832886684. That's +27 832886684. All right, we're going to take a quick break before we start the show.
Across Africa, communities rise with the promise of clean water and clean sanitation. The African Union's 2026 theme calls us to action.
It's about mobilizing real commitments, securing climate-resilient water and sanitation projects, and ensuring that water becomes a driver of sustainable development and prosperity across the continent.
A landmark moment, not only for Africa, but for the global movement for access to safe water for all.
Assuring sustainable water availability for every home, every village, every nation. This is the Africa we want.
Channel Africa, the African perspective.
Live from Morocco. Tune into Africa at Play every Saturday and Sunday. For all your updates, tune in to Africa at Play every Saturday and Sunday for all your updates. Africa Update on Channel Africa.
All right, you're listening to Africa Update with me, Unathi, in for Lulu. Let's get right into it. 8 Kenyan Defence Force soldiers have been charged with trafficking narcotics linked to a meth seizure intercepted at sea in October 2025. Now, the court was told that the drugs were valued at more than $63 million. The soldiers have pleaded not guilty to these charges. We're now joined on the line by our correspondent in Kenya, Alex Kiari. Alex, a very good afternoon to you. Give us a sense then, what exactly are the charges facing the 8 KDF soldiers?
So according to the documents presented by the prosecution yesterday, The 8 soldiers were charged alongside 2 other civilians for stealing part of the consignment that was seized on October 25 in the high seas of Kenya, and that it is said that the 10 pinch part of the consignment that is worth around $1.4 million, it's around 192 million Kenya shillings, and it is still not yet known where they were taking it to, and this is now for the prosecution now to tell us where exactly and who are behind it. But the biggest question is, were these people sent by the owners of the larger consignment that was seized, or were they just pinching it for their own benefit, or maybe to just be part of the cartels that have been selling drugs along the East African coastal line and also benefit from the same? Unathi?
So many questions. Walk us back, Alex, to how, in fact, this this meth shipment was intercepted at sea in October 2025. I mean, we saw just not too long ago, in fact, in the last 24 hours, so much activity on our seas, as there are so many interceptions also related to other issues like oil. So it's very interesting to see how authorities work around these matters. So just take us back then to October 2025, to that operation.
The East African coastline emerged as one of the most preferred routes for drug traffickers, mostly who are involved in supplying drugs illegally in Europe, with the Netherlands being one of the endpoints. But this one was as a result of what was referred to as a multi-agency operation that was launched by Kenyan and also the international community, including the United States and also part of European nations, who participated in this exercise. And it was based on intelligence reports that a consignment was supposed to pass through the Mombasa port en route to Europe, and it was allegedly supposed to go by road or through the airport to that to their preferred destination. So the consignment was seized, and KDF was part of the lead agencies who were involved in this, and stored in one of the warehouses in Mombasa County within the coast of Kenya. So later on, it emerged that part of the soldiers who were involved in this operation were the ones now who are now involved in the stealing of the just over 38 kilograms of that crystal meth, which they had intended to sell, but we still don't know where and who was involved, because it is also being alleged that it could be 2 options. That the owners of the drugs had decided now not to allow this thing to go to waste. Hence, they wanted to recoup part of the losses by allowing or using the 10 people to steal part of the consignment. Also, it is also alleged that the soldiers could have been involved as the individuals to benefit from the same. So East African coast has been part of that from the 90s, and it is linked to the collapse of Somalia after 1991. And it is then that because Somalia has a very long coastline, it is then that drug traffickers now decided to use it because of that failure in the systems of management and also the maritime guarding of the seas. And that's when now Mombasa got an interest, and that's how some of the high-profile individuals involved in this thing, some of them actually have been killed in the process, with one man called Ibrahim Akasha being one of the biggest names mentioned on the same. But it has also emerged that so many local politicians are involved in this, and some of them have adopted the Latin American way of drug traffickers of sponsoring parties and also having a push for the representation to protect the interest in government institutions and also other national agencies, including security.
Yeah, we know that all 8 have denied these particular charges. What penalties do the accused face under Kenyan law if convicted?
Now, according to anti-drug trafficking laws that were passed in 1994 and later on amended in 2022, anybody involved in drug trafficking, especially of high-end drugs like cocaine, like heroin, and also now meth, can face a minimum of 20 to 30 years and a maximum of life in prison. And this is mostly based on the laws that were passed based on the outcry that emerged after the killing of Ibrahim Akasha. However, the larger issue that Kenya faces currently right now is that there is a lot of interference, and there has been some complaints from individuals and other quarters that the judiciary is also used to sanitize some of the individuals involved in this trade. And that's where now the whole problem lies, and that's how this case is going to be ruled will determine whether the judiciary in Kenya is keen on ending this illicit trade or not. However, the bigger question is we still don't know who was involved in the larger consignment where these 38 kilograms were pinched from.
Yeah, and in light of that unknowing and that uncertainty about who the kingpins, to use that word, are, one would imagine that there's so much pressure then for the Defence Force. Has the Kenyan Defence Force officially said anything about these allegations and, in fact, this particular court case?
The Kenya Defence Forces just released a statement affirming the arrest of the 8 soldiers. But so far, it has not spoken around it further on the same. But as per our understanding, the soldiers are being charged in the civilian courts because this is more of a penal code offense that also involves non-military staff. So they're not very much, they seem to have delinked themselves from the individuals involved in this, the soldiers. So it is being handled as a criminal offense. And clearly, it seems like the soldiers, depending on their contracts with the Kenya Defence Forces or the army, might end up losing that option and that immunity from prosecution based on that.
That's very interesting, Alex. So in other words, they're not being tried under military law or in a military court. They are actually appearing under a civilian court. And the reason behind that, you're saying, is because they are being charged with other civilians.
Yes, that's how it is. And usually cases that appear before military court usually involve breaking of the Kenya Defence Codes, Kenya Defence Forces codes, and also matters around issues to do with military failures, including treason and maybe trying to inspire coups and such things. But these drug trafficking offences are usually handled by the civilian courts under the criminal penal system.
And before I let you go, what should the public be watching out for in the next court appearance? I mean, we are having all of these official statements. You've obviously quoted from the Kenya Defence Force. I would imagine also there is an official statement from the Kenyan government. Between now and the next court case, what are some of the key highlights that we should be looking out for?
What Kenyans are actually asking for are the names of the people behind the larger consignment beyond these so-called small fish that are now being fried before the courts. And also the fact that there is a lot of uneasiness over the issue of drug menace in the coast of Kenya. Because remember that late last year, a cabinet minister was linked to a drug haul that passed through the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport, only for the suspect to be nabbed at the Heathrow Airport in the UK. And that minister is still serving, and nothing has actually happened to him. Nobody has spoken about it. So Kenyans are just resigned and waiting to see how this is going to happen, because in the previous incidents, suspects have emerged with what we can call a tap on the wrist, nothing else much happening.
All right, Alex, thank you so much for that comprehensive update. Really do appreciate it. That is our correspondent, Alex Kiari, reporting there from Kenya around the 8 Kenyan Defence Force soldiers who have now been charged with trafficking narcotics linked to that drugs seizure intercepted in October 2025. Let's remind you then of our question of the day on today's hashtag Africa Updates asks. We are asking you the question. Nigeria's national football team, the Super Eagles, are threatening to boycott their upcoming Africa Cup of Nations quarter-final match against Algeria if they do not receive all outstanding winning bonuses. We're asking you the question, what do you make of this action or threat thereof? We know, of course, this is not not the first time we are hearing of an official country doing this during a major tournament such as this one. Of course, share your thoughts on Channel Africa's social media platforms at Channel Africa 1 on X and Instagram, as well as Channel Africa on Facebook. Or you can send us your comments and voice notes to our WhatsApp number +27832886684.
Tune in and turn up the volume. This is Channel Africa.
The whole population of Africa has been shocked to the depth of its soul.
For 60 years, Channel Africa has been the voice that connects the continent, telling our stories and sharing our vision with the world. This year, we mark 6 decades of broadcast excellence.
60 years of stories, sound, and connection.
6 years of African conversations that matter.
This is 60 years of broadcast excellence.
Broadcast excellence, rooted in Africa's heartbeat and looking boldly into the future. Join Channel Africa as we celebrate 60 years of broadcasting. Still strong, still vibrant, and still giving you the African perspective.
Channel Africa.
Africa Update on Channel Africa.
All right, welcome back. So let's take you to this now. A coalition of South African trade unions, political groups, and civil society organizations is picketing outside the American embassy in Pretoria today to condemn what they say is the U.S. military invasion of Venezuela and the kidnapping of President Nicolas Maduro and First Lady Celia Flores. The Congress of South African Trade Unions, that's COSATU, says it supports the protests, saying that the U.S. action violates the international law and Venezuela's sovereignty. For the latest, we're now joined by COSATU national spokesperson Zanele Sabela. Zanele, a very good afternoon to you, and thank you so much for your time. So give us a sense then in terms of the purpose of this joint picket today, and perhaps elaborate on how COSATU views the U.S. military action in Venezuela that we saw on Saturday as part of a broader pattern of interference by the USA.
Hi, Unathi. Thank you so much for having us. So we view this as a broader pattern because we have seen this happen in Afghanistan, we've seen it happen in Libya, we have seen it happen in Iraq. And so there it is, it's happening again. It is actually quite appalling that the U.S. at this day and age would continue to do this sort of thing, just invade a country and on top of that, kidnap the head of state and the first lady. And so this is why we are picketing, to raise our voices to say this cannot go on. It is, like you said, against international law, but then also it doesn't take into account at all the UN Charter. The U.S. just unilaterally went through with this action, and now from what we've heard in the U.S., Mr. Trump, the President Trump, is now setting his sights on Greenland. This is a really worrying pattern.
I mean, there are a couple of countries, in fact, that have been, thrown about, Greenland notwithstanding. We also know of Cuba and Colombia. So given COSATU's emphasis on, defending national sovereignty in the context of Venezuela, how do you assess the potential risks in South Africa, particularly to South Africa's own economic independence, particularly in light of Venezuela's oil reserves allegedly being targeted by U.S. interests? I mean, we've heard a number of statements being uttered by President Trump. He's also gone on his social media site saying that 30 to 50 million barrels of oil from Venezuela is going to be transported to the U.S. It will then be sold at market rate for the U.S.
So it's those kind of things.
Yeah.
There are trade laws. You are supposed to negotiate these kind of things. And for a country, from one state to actually invade another one and actually just have carte blanche over its resources, it's it's unheard of. And it's a kind of thing that everyone is watching, and everyone is worried about it. President Trump has made no secret about it. Other diplomats have given other justifications, but no, he has said truly that, like Venezuela has tremendous oil. So he's made no secret about the fact that they are going after the resources of another state, but, outside the bounds of international law.
Yeah. And let's talk about precedent. I mean, what precedent does this then set? If a major power like the US openly asserts interest in acquiring territory from an ally. I mean, you mentioned early on Greenland. We know, of course, European nations have condemned this move. Greenland is also a member of NATO.
That's the problem. That's the problem, that a state can actually just do this. And it's something that shouldn't be happening at this day and age. And so we are watching with interest. It is quite scary that this would actually happen. And it is a very scary time, actually, when you think about it. I mean, we have suffered, as workers have suffered from those tariffs that the U.S. imposed on South African exports last year. We have seen how it impacted the agricultural sector and the automotive sector particularly. But then that was something that was within the bounds of the law. And so we can't see these kind of things happening. I mean, it is 2026. This kind of thing shouldn't be happening.
Yeah. I want to just draw your attention, before I come back to the protest, to the very latest coming out of the U.S. I mean, we're now hearing, in fact, we've seen U.S. President Donald Trump essentially withdrawing from dozens, I think 66 of United Nations international organizations. I mean, these are organizations that stand for democracy, that stand for climate change, environmental impact, organizations like Peace Building Commission, Peace Building Fund, UN Alliance of Civilizations. I can go on and on. What do you make of this, and what message do you think the United States is sending with all of these, withdrawals?
When it started, we were all a bit shocked, taken aback, and because obviously there was a plan in place. There was a plan in place to say we do not subscribe to all these laws that the UN upholds. And so it is that pattern, and you speak about precedents. It is quite worrying, because then it says that if this continues to happen and the U.S. is not held to account, anyone else, anywhere else who feels that, they have more might than the next state can actually just invade another country and do as they will. And this will destabilize the global order. And effectively, that is what the U.S. is currently doing. It is destabilizing the global order.
Yeah. Very quickly, Zanele, we need to wrap. We need to go to news. As we wrap up our conversation, what specific steps are you as COSATU planning to take beyond today's picket to mobilize international solidarity against the U.S. interventions?
Well, currently this is an emergency protest. We didn't think that we should sit and wait too long, and we'll be going back to the drawing board to decide exactly what the next steps are. But in terms of solidarity, what we usually do is we get in touch with our counterparts in the affected country as a federation, and then speak to them and then see what it is that is needed and how we can go ahead to make sure that, we speak against this and we rise up against this. And so this is what we will be doing going forth.
All right, Zanele, thank you so much for your time. COSATU's national spokesperson, Zanele Sabela, just speaking to us there about that particular protest, a coalition of South African trade unions, political groups and civil society organizations is picketing outside the American embassy in Pretoria today to condemn what it says is the U.S. military invasion of Venezuela and the kidnapping of President Nicolas Maduro, amongst others. All right, so coming up, we'll also be in conversation with Douglas Ogbankwa, Esquire, convener of the Nigeria's Sports Hub, just around the very latest coming out of AFCON. Nigeria's football team, the Super Eagles, are threatening to boycott their upcoming Africa Cup of Nations quarterfinal match against Algeria if they do not receive all outstanding winning bonuses. All right, let's quickly take you to news. We'll be back with more.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Unathi. The death toll from a boat carrying migrants that capsized off of Gambia's coast on New Year's Eve has now risen to 39. The boat was bound for Europe. South Africa's African National Congress President Cyril Ramaphosa says the party is committed to the improvement of the people's quality of life. The interaction with the chief is amongst activities that the ANC's 114th anniversary. And President Donald Trump has signed a memorandum ordering the withdrawal of the U.S. from 66 international organizations. Nearly half of them are UN bodies. Channel Africa News, I'm Onele Nsinsi.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective. Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
And a very good afternoon from the sports desk. I am Musibu Dimakura with your latest sports news at the Sawa. So the fixtures for the Total Energies CAF Champions League 2025-2026 as well as the CAF Confederation Cup 2025-2026 group stage matches for match day 3, 4 and 5 have been confirmed by CAF. Now Africa's flagship interclub competitions will resume later this month with the next round of fixtures played between February the 23rd, between Friday the 23rd of February and Sunday the 25th of February across the African continent. They were paused in December to allow the continent's best national teams to compete in the ongoing Africa Cup of Nations tournament. Now 2 rounds of the group stage matches were completed just before the break, delivering early statements of intent from the title contenders as well as leaving several groups finally poised. Now match day 3 marks the midway point of the group phase, also making it a crucial juncture in the race for the quarterfinals where momentum is key and there is little margin for error. Well, Mozambique's national team captain Elias Domingos Pelembe has reflected on his 21 years on the international stage, with his only regret not being able to play more Africa Cup of Nations tournaments. The 42-year-old, who started in the Mamba's 4-0 demolition at the hands of Nigeria in the round of 16 at the Fair Stadium on Monday, officially called time on his international career on Tuesday after 101 appearances as well as 16 goals for his country. This was Pelembe's third AFCON, having first played at this level back in 2010 in Angola and then again at the 2023 edition in Cote d'Ivoire just in 2024. And he also looks back with pride at his journey, only wishing he could have played more AFCON tournaments.
It was a good journey, but I hope I had played more AFCON, no? No, it's football. I had the opportunity of playing these 3 tournaments, so it was a good journey. I enjoy it.
By the way, Mozambique registered their first ever AFCON win when they beat Benin 3-2 in the group stages, and the former SuperSport United Mamelodi Sundowns as well as Bedved's Wits winger thanked the millions of people back home for rallying behind the team.
They've been telling, they told us that they believe in us. They're always telling us that they believe in us. They are always behind us, and they've been supporting us with the messages. And the social media. So we just want to thank them and say, let's hope next time we'll have good luck.
On to some cricket news now. Pakistan made a statement ahead of the T20 World Cup with a commanding 6-wicket win over Sri Lanka in Dabula. The visitors restricted Sri Lanka to just 128 runs before cruising to the target with 20 balls to spare. Now, leg spinner Shabid Khan, returning from a shoulder surgery, struck twice in his first over to derail the host and then was named the player of the match. He said the series is vital preparation, with Pakistan said to play their World Cup fixtures in Sri Lanka. And finally, on the tennis court, Aryna Sabalenka expects to skip events again this year rather than put her mental health at risk over the course of what she calls an insane season, even though she knows she's likely to be sanctioned by the WTA Tour for doing so, with the world number one having confirmed the news earlier today. So the top players are obliged to compete in all 4 Grand Slams, 10 WTA 1000 tournaments, as well as 6 WTA 500 events under WTA rules, with the punishment for missing them ranging from ranking points deductions to fines. Back in 2025, Sabalenka completed in just 3 WTA 500 events. That was in Brisbane, Stuttgart, as well as Berlin, making her one of the number one ranked players, including world number 2 Iga Swiatek, to be docked ranking points. Meanwhile, the men's as well as the women's circuits have faced criticism due to their 11-month seasons, and both tours have come under fire and a lot of scrutiny during the Asian swing towards the end of last year, with injuries piling up on players. It's exactly 12:36 p.m. Central African Time. It concludes your sports news this hour. For any sports stories you'd like to share with us, send us an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za. Alternatively, call us on +27 11714 4459. For Channel Africa Sport, I am Mosibudi Makura.
Sports on Channel Africa.
The African Perspective. Your window to the continent and beyond. Africa Update. Only on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Conversations are happening, and Channel Africa is at the heart of them. We tell the African story with clarity, pride, and purpose, reaching audiences that matter to your brand. Partner with us and connect your business with listeners across borders in multiple languages and markets. For partnership opportunities, sponsorship, or sales, email us at partnership@channelafrica.co.za. Channel Africa, the African Perspective.
Africa Update on Channel Africa.
All right, thanks so much to Musibudi and Onele on the news desk. Let's continue to this now. Israel's formal recognition of Somaliland as an independent state has sparked strong condemnation from Somalia and the African Union and heightened tensions across the Horn of Africa. Now, the move followed by a recent meeting between Israeli Foreign Minister Gideon Saar and Somaliland's President Abdirahman Mohamed Abdullahi comes amid growing competition over the strategically vital Red Sea and Indian Ocean shipping routes and rising security concerns linked to Houthi attacks on maritime trade. Now, while Somaliland has welcomed the decision and signs suggest other international actors may follow, Somalia warns the recognition threatens its sovereignty and regional stability. The situation also risks reshaping alliances involving Ethiopia, Egypt, Turkey, and Eritrea. Now, to get the Somalian government position on this matter, Channel Africa's reporter Michael Mbewe spoke with the Somalian ambassador to South Africa, Mohammed Sheikh Isaac.
The federal government of Somalia reaffirms its non-negotiable commitment to its sovereignty, national unity, and territorial integrity, as enshrined in the Provisional Constitution of the Federal Republic of Somalia, the Charter of the United States, and the Constitutive Act of the African Union and territorial integrity. Unlawful steps by Israel purporting to recognize the northern region of Somalia, so-called Somaliland region, is an integral party and inseparable party of the sovereign territory of Federal Republic of Somalia. The federal government underscored that Somalia is a single, invisible sovereign state are now external as authorities or standing to alter its unity or territorial configuration, any declaration, recognition, or arrangement. So I came back to the message. Federal Republic of Somalia calls upon all states and international parties to respect international law, uphold principle of non-interference and territorial integrity, and act responsibility in the interests of peace, stability, and security in the Horn of Africa. Yes.
As you are saying, Somalia has argued that such recognition threatens its sovereignty and territorial integrity. From the government's perspective, what are the most serious political and security risks posed by Israel's move?
Somalia makes clear that it will not permit the establishment of any military bases or arrangement on its territory that will draw Somalia into a proxy conflict or import regional and international hostilities into this region. So the Federal Republic of Somalia warns that illegitimate action of this nature seriously undermine regional peace and stability, exacerbate political and security tension in the Horn of Africa, the Red Sea and Gulf of Aden and the Middle East, and also wider region.
Ambassador, there are also reports that other countries may be preparing to follow Israel's lead. What diplomatic or strategic steps is the Somali government taking to prevent this recognition from gaining wider international momentum?
As you know, the northern region's taken independence more than 30 years, but no single government has recognized it, including the British government, and I don't think that will happen. And I believe the report you mentioned is the Israel propaganda, and you can see the condemnation from many countries that came after Israel miscalculations.
In your view, what are the underlying motivations behind Israel's decision to recognize Somaliland at this particular moment, especially given the region's strategic importance for global trade and security?
Well, I believe that it demonstrates influence in the Red Sea region. As you know, Somalia is situated on the Horn of Africa. Somalia is a country of great geopolitical importance, overlooking the approach to the Bab el-Mandeb Strait. Somalia is at the junction where the Indian Ocean meets the Red Sea, leading up to Mediterranean through the Suez Channel. At the time when the global trade security in the Red Sea is exceptional valuable. This position is at the center of the overlapping security, commercial and geopolitical calculations. I think that might be Israel thinking.
One would like to know now, how does the Somali government assess the role of regional actors? You are neighboring Ethiopia, but also have ties with Egypt, Turkey, and Eritrea in this evolving situation. And what impact could shifting alliances have on the stability in the Horn of Africa?
Immediately after its decision, Israel received widespread condemnation came from all of the world, particularly Egypt, Turkey, KSA, Eritrea, you name it. And international organizations such as AU, OIC, Arab League, IGAD, ESC, and many other countries condemned this violation.
Do you think you are getting enough support from all these other countries?
Indeed, yes.
Okay, so finally, Ambassador, what role should the African Union play? I know you have mentioned that they have also, of course, I've also seen the statements condemning these actions by Israeli government, but what concrete actions would Somalia like to see the AU take to uphold international law and safeguard the principle of territorial integrity on the continent?
The African Union has already taken several actions and condemned it in the beginning, and also yesterday held a ministerial meeting for the Member State of Peace and Security Commission, and there was a strong statement. And yesterday, Somalia has already seen its solidarity from African Union, and it is a member state to uphold international law and safeguard the principle of territorial integrity on the continent.
All right, that was Channel Africa's reporter Michael Mbewe in conversation with the Somalian ambassador to South Africa, Mohammed Sheikh Isaac.
Channel Africa and you have got something in common. Thirst for knowledge.
Let's take you to this now. South Africa's National Consumer Commission has issued a recall of a specific batch of NAN Special Pro HA infant formula sold in South Africa, Namibia, and Eswatini. The recall follows concerns over the potential presence of a toxin linked to Bacillus cereus, raising food safety concerns for infants. Nestle and the regulator say that the move is precautionary with no confirmed cases of illnesses reported so far. Channel Africa's Lebogang Mabange reports for us.
The recall of some batches of infant nutrition products has widened beyond Europe to Africa, the Americas and Asia, including Brazil, China and South Africa. The National Consumer Commission in South Africa says the recall follows routine quality checks conducted by the manufacturer abroad. Petro Ntaba, spokesperson and media relations manager for the National Consumer Commission, explains how the contamination was detected.
Producers and manufacturers of products throughout the world are actually required to do routine checks to ensure that products they produce do comply with various laws throughout the world. So this contamination was detected in Europe, according to Nestle. Where when they were doing their traceability, they then identified some products or some batches in the Republic of South Africa, Namibia, as well as Eswatini. So they then followed the NCC's product recall protocols.
Nestle says only one batch of the infant formula was affected locally and that most of the stock never reached consumers. Connie Sitailo, Nestle Director for Corporate Communications and Public Affairs in the East and Southern Africa region, outlines the scope of the recall.
For us as South Africa, the quantities are quite limited because most of them were still within our control. So we have one specific batch that was imported from one of the affected factories or affected countries. However, we are well in control of that, and we have also notified the relevant authorities to help us make sure that we retrieve everything that is out there that we don't have, which is quite limited and minimal. Products were manufactured on the 15th of June this year, so it could have been for about 6 months on the shelf until now.
Nestle says that the issue was identified through its global quality assurance processes, prompting further testing of specific ingredients used in infant formula production. Sitailo explains.
So the testing that we identified the presence of cereulide, which is a heat-stable toxin. And now it's used as an oil that is used within infant formula manufacturing. So the potential issue was initially detected during our Nestle routine global quality verification processes, which actually triggered further targeted testing of what we call arachidonic acid, oil ingredient, and also some of the oil mixes that we use for infant formula products. So once the supplier's batch was found to be non-compliant, Nestle then launched a full investigation and notified regulators in affected markets, which also includes South Africa.
Despite the recall, Nestle says no illnesses have been reported to date.
Some of the symptoms include vomiting and diarrhea, which fortunately right now no sickness or illness has been reported or confirmed both globally and in South Africa. So parents can rest assured. I understand that this could cause concern, but can rest assured that nothing has been reported so far, which is why we do precautionary measure to actually withdraw everything that is still out in the trade.
The National Consumer Commission is urging consumers who may still have the affected products to stop using it immediately and return it to the store. Petro Ntaba explains the role of the regulator in the recall process.
So in terms of ensuring that the product is not in the stores, is the responsibility of the producer, manufacturer, or the store. But to ensure that that product is no longer in the hands of the consumer, that's why we come in as the National Consumer Commission or regulators to encourage consumers to stop using the product and taking it back to the point of purchase for a full refund or an exchange.
At this stage, the Commission says no formal investigation has been launched. Ntaba clarifies the current regulatory position.
There are no investigations as yet. It's just to engage with them to really understand and where we need more information, they need to comply with those requests. We have not initiated any investigation in as far as this recall is concerned. Therefore, we cannot say there are penalties or there are no penalties because there is no investigation.
Consumers in possession of the affected NAN Special Pro HA infant formula are advised to return it to the point of purchase for a full refund. Reporting for Channel Africa, I am Lebogang Mabange in Johannesburg, South Africa.
Es-tu préoccupé par quelque chose? Es-tu passionné par les questions qui comptent? As-tu une voix qui mérite d'être entendue? Eh bien, nous avons la plateforme parfaite pour toi. Téléphone-nous ou fais-nous un WhatsApp au +27 66 408 87 42 et nous te rappellerons. Sois dans la conversation.
Salut Channel Africa, ici Beno le diamant rouge aka Binal Export depuis le Cameroun, le pays des lions. Voilà.
Sois dans la conversation. Il ne s'agit pas seulement de parler, mais c'est ta chance d'exprimer ton point de vue, de partager tes opinions et de t'engager avec une communauté qui valorise ton avis. Suivez-nous sur les réseaux sociaux, visitez notre site www.channelafrica.co.za et préparez-vous à partager vos points de vue sur Channel Africa, la perspective africaine.
Africa Update on Channel Africa.
Well, you're still on the Africa Update with me, Unathi. But coming up next at 1 o'clock is The Upside. Mateko is in the studio. Mateko, good afternoon to you. How's it going? What's happening on the show?
Hello, Unathi. Yes, we have The Upside coming through. I am running solo this afternoon. It's a Thursday. I can't believe it's Thursday already. And since we continue with the festive edition of The Upside, we thought we'd keep things musical. One of the conversations coming through is with Slaga. He is a DJ and producer, and he released Groove Utopia. So we're going to speak about the new EP and what the music is all about, especially as we gotten into a brand new year.
Fantastic. Looking forward to it. The Upside with Mateko flying solo this afternoon. Thank you so much. All right, let's take you now to this next conversation. Nigeria's national football team, the Super Eagles, are threatening to boycott their upcoming Africa Cup of Nations quarterfinal match. That's against Algeria. That's if they do not receive all outstanding winning bonuses. This is not the first time the team has taken such a stand. In November 2025, they threatened to boycott a 2026 World Cup qualifier against Gabon. That dispute was resolved within 24 hours. All right, we'll continue to keep this conversation going with our various guests in our later programs. But give us your thoughts. I mean, just share with us your views. What do you make of this action of the threat? I mean, this match is happening on Saturday. It's a high-stakes game too. It's the 10th of January. So previously, as we've said, it took 24 hours for this dispute to be resolved. Will it take a shorter period this time around? Well, we'll have to watch and see. But give us your thoughts. Of course, this is an all-important one to watch. Share your thoughts on our social media platforms at Channel Africa 1 on X and Instagram, Channel Africa on Facebook. You can send us your comments. We'd love to hear from you. WhatsApp us on +27 83 288 6684. But for now, let's welcome on the line Douglas Ogbakwa, Esquire, convener at the Nigeria Sports Hub. Douglas, a very good afternoon to you. So happy to have you on the show. I mean, this is such a big one. This match is on Saturday. It's a high-stakes match. How do you view what's happening now, developments on the ground?
The developments on the ground is not something that we should be proud of as Nigerians. As you know, even before now, the team seems divided based on the allegations by some players that they are being sidelined in terms of being given passes. You could see that there was a big issue between Ademola Lookman and Victor Osimhen, after the match between Nigeria and Mozambique, which Nigeria interestingly won the resounding 4-0 victory. And right now we're hearing that the officials of the Nigerian Football Federation have not paid them their bonuses, and that the team is saying that they want to boycott the high-stake match, like you rightly stated, between Nigeria and Algeria. Nigeria and Algeria have had a rivalry that have been there for decades. It's one of the silent rivalries of Nigerian football. The West African and North African battle that carries with it a lot of history.
Yeah.
And then the fact that the Nigerian team is having such shenanigans going on is least much to be desired. And it's important for the Nigerian Football Federation to put their acts right so that the team will be in a good right frame of mind to meet the Algerian team, which is fast and furious. On the pitch.
Yeah. And just based on what you've said, I mean, give us then your views comprehensively looking at the past, even when we look at 2025, your views around Nigerian Football Federation, how it handles player welfare, and at the same time, just your message, to the Super Eagle players. I mean, do you believe that the players should then threaten to boycott a match of this importance, or do you think it's justified, given the fact that this match is happening on Saturday? Douglas, are you still there? All right, we seem to have lost Douglas, unfortunately, saying that it's not good news on the ground for Nigerians, given how important this particular match is. It is a high-stakes game against Algeria, happening on the 10th of January. That's on Saturday. Of course, it is still a standoff. No official confirmation yet, well, at least that I've seen from the Nigerian Football Federation in terms of how it will handle this latest matter. What we're talking about here is Nigeria's national football team, the Super Eagles, threatening to boycott their upcoming Africa Cup of Nations quarter-final match against Algeria if they do not receive all outstanding winning bonuses. Of course, we can, I think, as South Africans also know the disappointment, I would imagine, that this brings for, Nigerians on the ground, given the fact that, of course, South Africa also, came out of the AFCON quite early. In fact, some players returned home yesterday, most of them, in fact, with those that belong to other international clubs having gone directly to those clubs from Morocco. And we've heard from the Bafana coach, Hugo Bruce, expressing his disappointment, but saying that following his short break and holiday, he will be coming up and also doubling down on some of the work that the team also needs to do there ahead of the FIFA World Cup 2026. So we're monitoring all of these developments in as far as those that are still in the game and those that are out of the game. Let's take a quick break.
Gender-based violence is destroying lives and tearing communities apart. It happens in homes, in schools, at workplaces, and too often in silence. But it doesn't have to continue. If you see it, speak out. If you are hurting, reach out. Because doing nothing is not an option. Listen to all 19 SABC radio stations from Wednesday, 23rd of July for hard talk, discussions, advice, dramas, educational shows, and interviews around GBV with experts, survivors, lawmakers, and the whole country affected by gender-based violence. For all your favorite SABC radio stations, call 0800 428 428 to report abuse or get help. GBV, it ends with you. This message is brought to you by the SABC.
Africa, voici Abedi.
Oui, c'est moi.
Abedi est un passionné de musique dans l'âme. Il a un goût pour toutes sortes de musique et passe ses journées à écouter Channel Africa.
J'aime beaucoup la musique africaine.
Ok. Devinez quoi? Channel Africa veut aider Abedi et les mélomanes du monde entier à découvrir encore plus de musique incroyable. C'est pourquoi Channel Africa appelle les artistes africains à soumettre leur musique. Chers artistes, n'oubliez pas de nous fournir toutes vos informations pertinentes à l'email adresse musique@channelafrica.co.za. Les soumissions sont votre chance d'être entendues, mais elles ne garantissent pas une playlist. Toutes les soumissions seront soigneusement examinées pour voir si elles répondent aux exigences de notre station. Channel Africa, la perspective africaine.
Your window to the continent and beyond. Africa Update. Only on Channel Africa. Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
All right, so it's time for us to say our goodbyes. But before I do that, and before the upside at 1 o'clock, let's give you a quick recap of the show. Of course, we brought you that story coming out of Kenya. 8 Kenyan Defence Force soldiers have been charged with trafficking narcotics to meth seizure intercepted at sea in October 2025. They've all pleaded not guilty. That court case back a little bit later on. We also, of course, gave you a little bit of a sense of what's happening in the AFCON with Nigeria's national football team, the Super Eagles, threatening to boycott their upcoming Africa Cup of Nations quarterfinal match against Algeria. Of course, that's happening on Saturday. And we took you to Pretoria. That's where a coalition of South African trade unions, political groups and civil society organizations is currently picketing outside the American embassy in Pretoria today to condemn what they call the U.S. military invasion of Venezuela and the kidnapping of its president, Nicolas Maduro. That was a busy show. We'll see you back tomorrow, same time at 12 to 1. All right, it's time now for the upside. But first, let's take you to the news desk. For me, Unathi Batyashe and the team, Kamnandi.
SABC News. The African